Welcome! Today I'm going to show you my jig for making identical wedges at the bandsaw. This is a very interesting tool. It's the, I don't know, maybe the fourth or fifth iteration on this jig, because I've found it very useful over the years and I've been improving it, making it more safe, and I think it's now at the point where I can actually share it with you and show you how it works. Okay, we are continuing, of course, the last video, which was everything about how to get this sort of a fit on mortise and tenon joints, getting the tenon straight from your saw, which is what it should be, and you can do that. So make sure you check this video, because there's lots of useful information there. It's about 40 minutes of very, very useful content, so that you can get to saw just as well as I do or anyone else. Okay, let me show you the stock I'm using. First, I'm gonna show you this example here. This is finished, and you can see the through tenon with these two dark stripes. These two dark stripes are actually the wedges that come in here, and so this is a neat decoration. Nowadays we consider it a very nice decoration. It's actually the engineering of the piece, and this idea of showing your joints, it's actually pretty modern. It comes from the arts and crafts movement. Until that period, joinery was not really considered something special or interesting. It was just a means to get wood together, and it had to be sound but not necessarily beautiful. And the arts and crafts was a movement that actually emerged as a response to industrialization, and they tried to bring value and show the value of craftsmanship, and that's why we begin to see a very beautiful, neatly arranged through mortise and tenons that become the decoration itself, not only the engineering of the piece. So that said, the stock here, as you can see, I have it already cut to size. This is the stock we're going to be using, and this stock contains all of our wedges in that orientation. You see, we're gonna take one of these wedges here, and please note that the grain here is going in that direction. Okay, that's certainly unusual. Usually you have the grain going along the longest dimension of the component. In this case, we want it this way, because when we remove our wedge from the stock, we need the fibers to go along the wedge. If they are across the wedge, this wedge will be very, very weak, and we cannot afford that. And so let's have a look at the jig, how it is made, and I'll tell you all the bits at the bandsaw. So let's go there. All right, so this jig is made from plywood. It's two pieces of 10mm plywood. In this case it's Baltic birch, but you could go with anything else. You could make it also out of MDF, quite possibly. And it is designed to work with this stripe, which is a tight fit, not a tight fit, a sliding fit, but without tolerance, on this groove here. So the jig locates exactly in this position, as you can see, and it moves on and off this way. And there's also a stop here. You see, this stop bumps against the casting of the bandsaw, and this is to avoid my students ripping the whole thing apart into pieces. Okay, so that's very useful, and it will always get you to the same end point, which is very comfortable. And then we have a handle here, which is just any odd scrap piece of wood that we can have for a handle. Maybe a nicer handle would be more convenient, but usually these things, you make them as quickly as you possibly can. This one has been with me perhaps, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, and it's about time to make a new one, because I have a minute improvement that I'll tell you in a minute. Then we'll try it, we'll use it. I'm gonna make a couple of wedges, and at the end of this video we will actually wedge our mortise and tenon that we did in the previous one. So let's begin with this part here. This is the base, and it is a very important part, not only because it contains the rest of components, but it is a zero clearance false table for your bandsaw. And this is a very important part. When you're making a wedge here, there is the danger that it might fall right between the blade and the table, and it might get blocked there, and then it shoots off just like a projectile in a terrible way. It's incredibly dangerous. So you want to avoid the risk by having a fence that has only one curve and only space for the blade. This way the wedge here cannot actually wedge in to the gap, and that's a very important safety rule. The first version of this didn't include that. It was much easier to make, but it became, I realized there was a potential risk there. We've never had any problems, but be very careful with small bits of wood getting stuck there at the throat of the saw. So next is the compartments to the right of the saw. Let me remove that so that I can better explain. You see here we have two compartments which are slightly different. These are rests where the stock is rested on, and this one is 90 degrees from the saw curve. As you can see, this one is slanted by the angle of the wedge, as you can see here. So they are different, and this is because as soon as I remove the first wedge, this 90 degrees here will stop being 90 degrees, and then I can flip the piece over and I can come in here and I can cancel those this out of squareness. You will see that in action in a minute, and it will make good sense to you. Okay, the whole point of this is keeping the cuts as reasonably parallel to the grain as possible. Okay, obviously within that angle of the wedge. And to the left of the saw curve, we have these two wedge-shaped compartments where our wedge is going to be formed. And I don't really know the angle anymore. I've completely forgotten. Quite possibly something around a 1 in 6 angle, which is, I don't know, maybe 5 or 7 degrees, something like that. You can do the math and let me know if you like. You can experiment with different angles, but somewhere around a 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 angle is what works for me. And then we have those two funny sticks here, which are trapped into a channel, so to speak, which has been formed with a dovetail router bit. Okay, so they are actually captive here. You see, I cannot pull them out, and they are meant to be here for one reason, which is pushing away the wedge without putting your fingers close to the blade, which that's quite an important part of the process. Especially as I work with students, I'm trying to make it as safe as possible, and this makes things very efficient. Also, when the guard of the bandsaw is lower down, you have not very good visibility, so having something to push the wedge out, it's a good idea. The rubber bands are just for an easy return, to make sure nothing is on the way of the blade as I move in and out the jig. Okay, and let me show you one thing. In the next version of this tool, I'm going to make deeper channels because we have a problem here. As you can see, the stick is not going all the way down, and there is a space in which the wedge can be, hiding and dodging my stick. So sometimes we get into this problem that this will fall and it will not really clear out very well. So that's something we're going to make better. And by the way, I hope very soon you will have these plans available. I'm not sure if it's going to be on my website or if you can buy them straight here from YouTube, but you'll be able to buy the plans of this jig so that you can make your own to those exact measurements. I'm using my bandsaw, which is a Hammer N4400, but you could adapt it to any other brand. I think any bandsaw out there will be okay for doing this. All right, so let's put it to good use and see how it works. Before I turn the machine on, let me tell you a couple of things. First of all, this guard here is way up because I need you to see what I'm doing, but it would be safe to have it as low down as possible. So do work with safety, keep your fingers away from this saw curve, which is the path of the saw, and use always ear protection. Also, I wanted to ask you please for a favor, subscribe to our channel and like this video if you're finding it useful. It's great help and it's the only way for us to keep moving forward, to keep delivering you the best possible content. So please do that, don't forget, do it now, and that's great help. Thank you. All right, let's get there. Okay, so as you can see, the work itself is pretty quick. Lots of explanations, but then that's easy. We're making wedges that have the tip slightly blunted, not feather edge, but actually 1 millimeter thick at the thinnest point. And you will see this is just to get a very good entrance and a solid wedge right at the tip. If you make them feather edge, they tend to break as you hammer them in. So you control this with the actual length of your stock. This dimension here along the fibers, this is 30 millimeters, but if you wanted thinner wedges at the tip, you could go 35 millimeters and they would become feather edge, or you can get them just thicker by reducing this dimension. And we only have one thing to do, and it's at the tenon side. We need to make the cuts that will receive those wedges. So I'm gonna do that at the bandsaw because I know exactly the curve that I'm getting, and it's matching the thickness of this the finer point of my wedge. So let me just get it here, and I'll make this couple of cuts. So now you can see the wedges fit very snugly into the curve and everything is very neatly arranged. I wanted to mention some people are quite frightened of getting a crack developing as they drive the wedges in, and some like to make a hole here. Years ago I stopped drilling this hole at the bottom of this curve because I think it does nothing really in woodworking, maybe in metalworking. The actual thing that really matters is that you have a tight tenon or a tight fit right here at the base, because if there is no space for the timber to move apart, there is no space for a crack to develop. So you can imagine the mortise piece acting as a force belt here, compressing everything or keeping it together as you're driving your wedges. It is also very important that this part here of the tenon, it's relatively small. I really dislike the idea of putting a single wedge on the middle of this tenon. That might work if you're working with very soft flexible timbers, with pine maybe, but something like cherry or even oak would be terrible. It's the best way to get something cracked because there is no flexibility, and we need flexibility in this part here. Okay, so let's get back to the workbench and we'll glue this together. Okay, we're ready for glue up. I think I have everything laid out. Have some hot water just heating on the fire, and yeah, I think I'm ready to go. Just a couple of remarks on gluing mortise and tenon joints. There is a big issue with glue starvation, and that's the main cause of failure in mortise and tenon joints, provided that you did proper woodworking and you have glue good contact between the tenon and the mortise. Okay, so to avoid that, we always coat both parts of the joint, and let's try and direct the excess glue to the outside where we can clean it easily and try and have clean glue-less shoulders here, and you can do that. So this is how we do it. All the glue I'm putting in the mortise, you can see I can be as generous as I like, because all this glue is going to be pushed out to the outside of the joint where we are going to take some shavings and flush everything, and we will be able to clean everything very easily. Of course, generous doesn't mean excessive, okay? You shouldn't have any drippings and everything should be neat. So let's go to the mortise now. The mortise, I'm gonna be very sparing because it's the glue on the tenon that will be squeezed to the shoulders and will give us squeeze out on the inside corners where we don't want it. That's particularly important when you're making drawers or fine structures that you want to keep nice and clean. So what I'm gonna do is just to coat very sparingly the upper half of the joint, as you can see here. Okay, maybe some on the sides. Okay, so we're ready to put the joint together. If I can remember how it was this way. Yeah, and please note I'm using a sacrificial board to avoid damaging the workbench. Now I'm bottoming out and I'm gonna go on the gap here. Okay, those are shoulders closed, and this is what we have. For a better recording, we will hold things here on the vise. In general, I would say it's not a good idea to hammer things while they are subjected on the vise, because you can damage the vise, you can damage the piece. People do it anyway. But so now a little bit of glue on the wedges. It's amazing how my students will very commonly forget about that. Okay, that is enough. I don't need to worry about the curves there. They will receive all the excess glue in the mortise, and I think there is no need. So this enters beautifully. Now we're gonna hammer it. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. And now you have noticed that I was tapping on them alternatively to make sure they enter to the same depth, and since they are identical, this will give us the most symmetrical result, which is what you want. You want something nice and even. Okay, so now I'm going to get the hot water that will swell the marking gauge lines and the knife lines that are actually compressed fibers that are waiting to close. So this is what I'm going to do now. Here's my hot water, and toothbrush is what you want for this. It's very useful, an old toothbrush. And the water could be cold, but when it's hot, it helps a lot swelling the fibers back. Okay. Yeah, that looks very nice. Okay, so now we're gonna wait for the glue to thoroughly dry, and then we can flush it up. Okay, we've let the glue set and it's thoroughly dry, and now we only need to remove these remaining bits here. So this will come this way, and I'm going to use a flash cut saw. Dictum offers a range of different blades for different purposes, and I find this one very useful. It's a great saw, and they're made in Japan by Kakuri Corporation. Whoever they are, they're doing a great job. Okay, so I'm gonna come in here and carefully I'll flush the joint. Okay, this is one horn off, and I'm gonna come in and remove the other one. Okay, so now I have a few bits remaining here, and I'm gonna plane those away, and then we'll put some shellac on it and you will see the job completed. Okay, so a little bit more maybe. Nearly there. Okay, so I'm going to take a slightly thicker shaving now, and you will see what we've got. Yeah. So there it is, a little bit of the tenon and the two wedges, everything within the shaving. Nice funny game. And now we'll see how does it look with shellac. This is always nice. Okay, I'm pleased with that, and now you know how to make perfect wedges and how to make them look identical and symmetrical. Okay, so see you in the next video. Please don't forget to subscribe and like us, and it will be great help. Thank you.